we need to take a pause and we need to stand back and examine the 16 years into this seamless democracy of ours, quiet democracy of ours. The worst could have been, it could be the violent democracy and the violent leadership, but we had a seamless transition. Having said that, one has to pause in various intervals into this democracy to see if the gains of the Constitution is still being held up, if the gains in terms of closing the gap between the rich or the have and the have-nots, has that been done successfully? The gains between what we have expected in the political dispensation and also the same gains made in an economic dispensation.
What's your view in terms of the current state of play with regards to leadership and ethics in business South Africa?
Good leadership would have transparency as the basis or fundamental basis in what they do. Accountability must be an outcome and a measurement, and people must not be rewarded for good behavior. You should not be rewarded for good behavior. Good behavior must be a given, must be a real natural component in reshaping and building successful leaderships in South Africa. We have had very, very bad examples of this, but I think an examination of the Finance Act, the Public Finance Act, the Municipal Finance Acts, and people engaging it more, both from an audit committee, internal process in municipalities and governments, I think the state has intervened quite successfully, and I think there's a re-examination of that.
How have you managed to remain sort of strong in terms of your performance given and exposure to little debt, given the rather contracted financial crunch that we were in a few months ago?
Very simply, I think we were always debt averse, and none of the businesses that we engaged ourselves into was built in any way under gearing or under debt. What we've done was, before we engaged into any of these businesses, we accumulated capital. We didn't go to banks, or we didn't go to funders or lenders with very, very difficult gearing restrictions before we entered into this business. So in other words, we took a view that if we share the risk with investors, it would be better than accumulating wealth via going onto the debtors formation or going into banks or institutions that will borrow you the capital, and then when markets turns against you, you have this difficulty. So what we've done, we've taken the equity route where we've actually funded our business through equity participation rather than gearing.
From Cape Town to the rest of Africa, you're a shareholder in ACG, and it's a joint venture between yourselves and Noble Group Limited, pursuing soft and hard commodities in Africa. Clearly, Africa being the next frontier in terms of the commodity drive and the commodity cycle. Tell me about this opportunity that you have sort of partnered in with ACG and your view in terms of the opportunities on the African continent.
I think that's a very exciting business. We were very pleased that a big Fortune 500 company like Noble, they listed on the Singapore Exchange. They do turnovers in excess of $36 billion US. They're a worldwide player in a range of commodities. And in their re-entry back into South Africa, they were scouting out to kind of re-enter South Africa again as a viable player for commodities, particularly coal, which they're strong in, grains, iron ore, manganese, and ferrous metals. And perhaps they went full circle and engaged our company, Altius Investment Holdings, some time back with a view to forming some kind of strategic partnership. That was then successful. They did their due diligences, they did their kind of courtship, and we did our courtship with them. And we then formed a company called ACG, African Commodities, of which we own 40%, and Noble, which is a global player, owns 60%. And that is perhaps one of the turning points for Altius Investable Holdings to become a quasi-global player, because we have a huge international company that have taken a huge leap of faith into a small, up-and-coming black, so kind of black-controlled, black-owned, diversified group like Altius. And so we just found this marriage an important thing. We benchmarked ourselves with what is internationally the best standard, and also what better mentor to have than having the experience we can leap and lean onto. And I've been made chairperson of that company, and we now are going to exploit is a wrong word. Take the opportunities that Africa is giving to the world in terms of the commodities. We are very blessed with Africa, either blessed or cursed, with these commodities.
And how far down the line are you in terms of those negotiations, in terms of, talking to governments and in terms of earthing up the commodities?
Well, in Africa, we already have a footprint. Noble has a footprint in Kenya, in Ghana. Noble has a footprint in sub-Saharan Africa. And we presently are exporting this year alone 12 million tons of coal. I mean, from 0 to 12 million is a huge, huge step. And we've done so on grains. We're shipping thousands and thousands of tons of grain from Africa into China and other parts of the world. And those negotiations are ongoing as we speak. And they are quite friendly and they are quite mutual in terms of our interaction with these states.
Your business is also spreading into Australia, and there's a deal that I've read about through East Energy. Tell me about that in terms of the energy race and how you're getting involved in it.
I think because we're taking on global features in our business as being a small South African company born out of the Western Cape, we felt that it was better to mitigate our concentration of our business globally than just be stuck in one place in the world. Noble has afforded us the opportunity to participate with them in East Energy Resources in Australia. It's an exploration opportunity where we believe we can probably find something like 1.5 billion tons of coal in that part of the world, and we own 5% of that operation, ungeared, paid for, and we participate with Noble in this opportunity. So it's fantastic that a South African company, most of the Australians literally have their footprint in South Africa via Billiton and other companies. And we, as a small player, as literally a junior commodities player, have now, some kind of footprint over there. And we hope to grow that footprint in other disciplines.
What drives your expansion strategy within your business? I mean, what sort of business do you pick up on, and which ones do you sort of hold back on because it's not really in line with where you're going?
Before we actually launched Altius in 2005, we sat back and we said, what are the things we know well and what are the things we know bad? And we knew 4 things well. We understood fresh produce, we understood mining or commodity trading, we understood IT, and we understood training and perhaps the training part of it is not so big anymore. We've got a company called Amicus which does training on Public Finance Act and Municipal Finance Act and also team building in organizations. But technology, water, hard commodities and soft commodities was the strength we had, and we built on those strengths. Instead of going into a myriad of other opportunities that were there, we kind of desisted, and it's very difficult to not participate in those opportunities. But we took a strong view that if you focus, you can build something solid, than if you touch on so many areas which you don't have expertise. It's going to lead to either unwinding out of these positions or selling these positions or taking opportunities that we believe is not going to concentrate on our core competencies.